Drew, how's the fine state of Texas?
It's amazing. I just took my dog for a walk and said hi to my neighbors. Everybody's friendly. Everything's bigger. I mean,
I was
it's
going to say, have you noticed everything's bigger? Because everybody in Texas telling me everything's bigger, everything's better. So I'm just
everything's
wondering.
bigger. The sky is bigger. I don't even know where it stops.
It's ridiculous. You promised me you wouldn't turn into this guy if I let you.
So, man, are you 5'8" now?
Oh, wow. Man, now we're going to go for short guy jokes. Man, Ryan is on a ringer today. All righty. All righty. Well, today on Coffee Experts Club, we are going to talk about some pretty cool stuff. Excited to talk about it. Last couple of weeks, we've been talking about processes, how we can make them better. We had talked about a couple of weeks ago now. Drew had taken us through, I guess it was Ben taking us through some of the ownership rollout when it comes to the menu tool and how we can control menu prices and pricing and profit. We talked about sales goals and reach this last week, and just talked about ways that we as owners and then we can empower our managers to begin to grow sales. And a lot of that comes through the accountability of numbers. We gave you some good examples of that. If you're looking for good examples, I talked to the coffee client this morning on a call, and I said, hey, we ran through some pretty good they versus you. Sometimes as owners, we can feel like it's all on us. Like we've got to come up with all the answers. But a lot of times when we can just empower our people, they come up with some pretty badass solutions that maybe that wouldn't have come from us. And when you're the only origin, I think then, you limit yourself. So I think that there's a lot of great things we can expect from our people when it comes to asking them how to grow and putting even responsibility on them to help us grow. So talked about metrics that way. Today, we're going to look at some metrics a little bit different, and it's still in the whole vein of wanting to create owners out of our people. Obviously, maybe they're not official owners. Maybe they don't profit share the same exact ways, but we are advocating for them sharing in some of the profit when it comes from bonuses and raises. And, we talked about incentive matrix a couple of weeks ago of a way that you can kind of rev share even without necessarily them being on the ownership operating agreements necessarily, but they're benefiting as an owner. But I think that to benefit as an owner, they need to also participate as an owner in some ways. And so we're going to talk more this week about just the idea of ownership rollout, metrics wise, especially in regards to something we call report cards, which is really kind of a quality control. Pedro and I are not Pedro. I almost called you Pedro. Now you know where my brain's at and what I'm running on the other side. Drew and I have talked a lot about report cards, and Drew came out of a place where report cards were pretty intense. And you were especially parts of the people running the report card could be really intense. And so I think we need to be careful as we talk about report cards that it's not like the principal's coming down on you and you just failed your report card and you're going to get cut off. And because there can be some cultural things that you want to be really aware of when you start tracking metrics too tight. But at the same time, I think giving people expectations. Drew, is there anything that you want to talk about when it comes to cultural perspective before we start like taking you on a field trip, showing them our report card, showing them some of the systems we've created when it comes just from culture and the culture of a report card?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to say about the communication breakdown between what's expected and what is actually looked at as a metric. The cultural side of things, of course, I'm a big fan of taking people along by the hand and showing them what needs to be done. When we started in the early days with what we called report cards, it was more of we never knew what was going to happen until we got a report cards. And then it was like, you can't retroactively fix all these things.
Right.
You just 73%. So as we progressed, we were given a lot more tools and metrics and taken by the hand and shown the way in order to actually have a little bit more power in our, report cards, which I think is important because it's not just us they're grading, it's a customer experience that's being graded.
Yep.
It's the quality of the service. It's the quality of the way the building looks and the baristas. And, when you have somebody guiding you along, you're going to be able to fix things along the way rather than just 3 months later, you found out 2 months ago you had a really big problem that just went on for months. So
right.
Culturally, yeah, there's a big deal, I think, with taking people along with you and then just communicating exactly what's expected.
And then I think too, like realizing nobody likes martial law, right? Like nobody likes the feeling of that. When everything got locked down for pandemic and they're like, you can't go outside after 10 p.m. Nobody likes the feeling, like nobody likes to be cinched down on, So I think that if what I found is in a culture, if you can create a culture of expectations, then it keeps you from having to drop down hard, heavy-handed, strong correction, because then when it comes time to correct, they saw it coming all along. They saw this was a consistent problem. They knew this isn't a big surprise. If you sucked it on this part of your score, on this part of your report card, like you knew you were sucking it all the way along, rather than popping it on people. And then some of the cultures that Drew and I have seen is like threatening. You got lower than, if you get lower than a 70, then you get a write-up. Instead of like, well, is that the best way to move people though? Or should, what's the saying? You get more bees with honey than vinegar, which I'm not even sure is an accurate saying, because I'm not sure you get bees with honey. But the essence of it is you're easier to motivate people when there's something sweet at the end rather than something bitter at the end. And I think that if you can teach people from your culture of course, we're going to hold expectations. What, that was not a saying? You got another saying for me or what? Give me the saying if you got another saying.
Catch more flies with honey.
What? Is that the saying?
Yeah, you're trying to catch your flies, right? Get rid of them all.
Are you, Tasha? Is that the saying?
I don't know. It made sense that you know,
bees
you want
and honey. There's a correlative. There's a correlative.
Bitter at the end. I like the second phrase. I don't know if it's a fly or a bee, but I want something sweet at the end and not bitter.
Right?
Yes.
Hey, buddy. Hey,
Hudson. I love Ryan coming on just to chip his teeth like Ryan's.
Yeah, he's like,
Ryan?
and a thing.
I love it. So anyway, all that to say, creating a culture where you're rewarding people rather than consequentially coming down on people. Now, there's going to be the times that you have to correct. I mean, there's going to be the times when you have to call people out on things, but everybody, I feel like, can appreciate more discipline when they understand why they're being disciplined, rather than just it's abuse when people don't understand why they're being disciplined. Right? There's no way around that. When somebody's just dropping the hammer, but there was no explanation, there was no preparation, like nobody likes the way that feels. So we're going to give you some metrics, and realizing the whole reason we're giving people these frameworks to either reward them or correct them is for the sake of, we want the best from our customers, right? Like all of us want to see our stores grow. The way that our stores grow is by giving our customers the best, right? And the way that we give customers our best is when we're at our best. That's the only reason we come up with report cards is, hey, are we really watching these areas? Because this is what is going to produce the best in us, which enables us to give the best out from us, which in turn enables the customers to give back to us the best. Drew, do you have something you want to say to that? You look like you had something you want to say to that.
You're preaching, buddy. Preach it. Yeah.
Preach it.
Customers over everything, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Serving, right? It's all about serving. So I'm going to share my screen and we can go through the report card. So first of all, we're going to look at a couple of things today. And both of these things, we're going to look at a template and then we're going to look at the roll up. But I thought I'd at least start with the end and work backwards. That way it gives you kind of an understanding of what it is. Drew's looking at it like, didn't I clean that up? You did, Drew. This is the template. So if you want a template on the resource center in the membership area, there's an opportunity to be able to grab templates and be able to roll this out in your business. You can take advantage of that in the resource area. I'm going to show you this for the sake of giving you real numbers right now and giving you some names and things so you can theorize, but obviously we've shaken them out into templates for you to be able to use. So first off, what you get when you start metrically tracking people is year-over-year numbers. So, we were able to, for 4 years, give Roasters, who was our client at the time that we developed this for, a very accurate understanding of how people are showing up on their report cards. And the way that this works is, at times there was handoffs of managers. And so this is a location and managers. There was a handoff between Blake to Tyson. And you can see the percentage they're coming in at on their report card. So the roll-up sheet, if you clicked on any of these, would take you to the report card itself so that they could go in and see, and we would roll this out to our different managers. They could see how they're doing, how they're averaging, how they're trending, how did they do the year prior? Like the same Blake here, this is his average. And as you go back, you can see the movement. I think all those things really help when you're building a story, especially when you're trying to say, okay, company-wide, we're going to celebrate. Company-wide, we're at 81%. Oh my gosh, we grew 6% in our company-wide scorecards or company-wide report cards. And then you can praise them for that. Or like if you take a downturn, you can say, hey guys, unfortunately, we as a company took a nosedive and dropped a percentage in our quarter-over-quarter report cards. I think just giving people an understanding, I think the more and more you can help them to see it's a collective whole. It's not just one store that's killing it versus one store that's not killing it. I mean, this guy down here, this guy just took us down every single time. Like, this guy was just a pain in the ass every single year. Drew Moody.
Sucking it up. I don't know what his problem was.
Man, got a 90% quarter three, but dropped down to an 80, Drew. I mean, come on, bro. Like, what happens here? Like, what kind of example are you going to be for us?
There should be / other name behind me, I think.
But I do think the nice thing about, and I'll show you kind of how I would roll this out to team towards the end today. But the nice thing about collective metrics is it's very, very clear what we're tracking. And it's very, very clear how you've been doing. And it's very, very clear why you're being rewarded or not. And I think that all of those things, it's so good just to have a culture of transparency. There's no hook and layers. There's no weird compensation based upon like favors, or I like you more than I like that person. It's all driven back to metrics. It's all driven back to us rating you on consistent things that are important to us, so that you're at your best, so that you can give the customer your best, so that we can hope and expect for their best on the return. So I'm going to show you the report card, and we're going to kind of go through how we kind of developed it within Roaster's model. So the way that this worked was kind of a brief explanation at the top, used as a coaching tool for the store managers. We used 4 different groupings of leadership within Roasters. Each one of those groupings would come in and rate the stores and provide feedback. And obviously it represented a lot of time, like to send out leaders of the organization into each one of these stores represents time. We wanted them to take it seriously. We also requested that if people were rated below a certain score, that they would also give an action plan of how they were going to correct it. So as we went through, it wasn't just, oh, you sucked it. You got a low score. 4.8 obviously isn't a low score, but let's say they got a 3 there. And I think it was anything that was 3 or below. Anything 3 or below, we expect you to come back with an action plan on how you're going to fix that for the next quarter. That way there's some ownership, there's some responsibility. You're holding people accountable to, hey, we called this out as an issue last quarter. What's your action plan to make this better? And then so that as you go to report card next quarter, you're able to look back and say, did they make it right? Have they corrected this problem? And that way it's just very, very transparent. So we're going to go through each section. I'm going to slide it down. Operations, that was Ben. So you guys are familiar with Ben. Ben is in Southern California running an event this week, and so he's not with us today. So Drew's pulling double duty.
Double duty.
Aesthetics. This was something that was really a passion point for the owner's wife at Roasters, and she was very, very particular about how she wanted the aesthetics.
I learned a lot from her about aesthetics.
Yeah, just how she wanted the stores to look at. And then as you notice, you're going to see every area has a summary and a score out of how many points. So each section is being graded. This one was the regional. So when the regional went around, the regional had some input on what they were looking for. And then finally there was culture. And there was a cultural section that they graded on and were rated out of. And then between those 4 scores, it came out to a grade held against 100 points. And we just found that, I mean, if you keep it close to like school grades, like 80% is a B, 90% is an A, like 90% above. Like it just helps people to understand what you're saying and what's important to you. So you might have to game your points. You may not have this many sections. All those things might need to be adjusted. But I think the main take home is what's important to you as a company for the sake of rating. What's important to you so your people understand how it works. So we're going to go through section by section. Drew, is there anything that you want to say or anything you want to add before we jump into that?
I think that it's the action plan portion was huge because, not only do you give them ownership, but you get a peek into their methodology behind problem solving. And all we ever want to do is create excellence within our people. So when you see somebody going at a problem in a way that could be, improved, when they hand you their action plan and you actually have an opportunity to coach them within their realm of, understanding, you can meet them where they're at. So I think giving them the opportunity to come up with their own action plan is a fantastic move.
Yeah. So, and I mean, obviously this came over time. And so maybe you look at this and you think, man, this seems really involved. I would say my encouragement to you is anytime we're presenting anything here on Coffee Experts, we're not saying this is the only way to do it. We're not even saying this is the best way to do it. We're just saying that this is the way that we've seen success with it being done. And I think that as we think about it and as we look at it, the big picture is to inspire thought in you, obviously we'll give you templates that take some of the work out of it. But like, this is really intended to ask yourself, what's important in my coffee culture? do some of these things line up? Are there some of these things that like, that doesn't work, that doesn't really work for us? That's fine, cut it out. But come up with the things that are most important and then hold your people accountable, because that's what shapes the culture of a place. If you're sloppy in how you're holding people accountable, you may have great things that you're intending with your mission statement, your vision statement to hold people to, but if we get sloppy in our accountability, then the whole culture slides, and then our customers feel it, and then it affects our bottom line. So jump in here. And then, so Tasha, I'm going to go through some of these things, and then any feedback you have. I know you've been rating people for a long time. You've been grading people for a long time. I mean, Human Being has their way of doing it. And you guys, I know you and Drew, I think, are working on something currently too, that's kind of a new rollout. So I'd love any thoughts you have to jump in and add. I always love hearing from you as well. So don't let me just railroad you.
No, you're good.
Okay, so from an operations perspective, these things that were the most important to Ben, and that is tallies. And what you'll see is an area, a description, and then the comments. This is from whoever's grading, and then the action plan is whatever the manager needs to take action on based upon what's been commented on or graded. So not everything's going to have an action plan, but the things that need action do. So for tallies are recorded correctly, maintained weekly, and mistakes are adjusted accordingly. We worked with the tally system for a lot of things that have moved to, I would say, Drew, things that we've kind of moved into more automated these days. Roasters started from the method of let's do free for as much as we can. It was very easy for us to collect numbers and keep people accountable with numbers, cup counts, over-unders, places where it was just things being tallied correctly. So you're going to see some things here where you might feel like that we track that automatedly now, in a digital way. But I think it's just important for whatever the metric is.
Well, and we actually kept them for a while too as educational material, as well as accountability, so that the people would know what was going on with the money.
Yeah, it's good. When we said tallies here, Drew, what was all in that? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was the total per shift. We had 2 to 3 shifts a day, and then we'd count every cup, and we'd find the average sale per cup. We didn't do a lot of pastries, so it didn't really skew our numbers too much. Yeah. And we had free cards, we had over under logs, which was you'll see down there. It was our cash total, whether or not we matched with the system within a certain parameter. And then we had all our gift cards on there as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a lot of slippage in coffee with the free drink cards, especially when you're using stamps. That's a pretty, people have moved to a different loyalty system now, but we found some slippage in people not being honest and people stealing based upon that. So we did have a part of that where we really kept that in check. So just a few chips missing free cards. That's what it's referencing there. And then incorrect gift card sold numbers. That was why he rated them down from a 5. I think it's always important to tell people why you're rating them down. Mm-hmm. Tips, they got perfect. So tip records were maintained and kept up to date accurately and weekly. Over under, our over under logs, it was remain monthly between $20 over or $10 under. Good job. Just a few shifts outside of the parameters. We gave them a 4. Time cards, baristas and managers clocking in and out on time. Time cards maintained in timely fashion. No further corrections needed from payroll manager. You may, obviously Ben hammered them here. The real reason for that is, and it's so important for managers to understand, is when you get sloppy, that costs us time someplace else, probably at somebody more expensive than you, so the best thing we can do is many hands make light work. And so the best thing you can do is stay accurate on your stuff so that whoever's overseeing that doesn't have to put a bunch of their more expensive time in it to make it better. So for this one, Ben says some baristas do well, however, some do poorly. Manager and assistant, very poor at clocking in and out on time. So hammered. What do you think about that, Drew?
It's when you're managing people, sometimes you forget to manage yourself.
Yeah. I should have pulled up Richland's. That would have been the real punk thing to do. Pull up one of Drew's old ones just so we can hammer on him publicly. No.
Pull up that 81 and see what happened.
Yeah. Inventory. Stock levels of inventory, not over or under independent, not taking from other stores. We've talked about that on COGS, like super important. How are you managing your inventory, manager? This manager, even though they sucked it at managing their own time, clocking in and out, they did great when they were maintaining their own stock and inventory. Anything you want to say on that section, Drew, or is that covered pretty well?
It covers it pretty well. I think inventory and money those are heavy hitters. That's why he marked them down on a point for the over under. And then obviously his time was important, so he marked them down heavy on the time cards. But I think it's a massive skill to be able to track your inventory.
Yeah. And then I would have preferred Ben to give us an operation summary here. It looks like he didn't on this particular report card, but give us a summary. Like what do you see, Ben, when you look at your section of the card? How can this manager do better? Where are they doing better? I think I'm always one to give somebody a compliment before I correct. Like, tell them they're doing well, make them feel good about something, so they don't just walk away feeling like I suck. Like, give them something, give them a win, but also give them a correction if they need to correct. So that's that section. This one's aesthetics. So this was, a passion point for the wife of the owner. We talked about that here. Exterior, drive through clean, concrete, patios, walkways, point of sale, which was their, what they called their signage, windows clean, 4.5 out of 5. Drive through walkways are kept mostly free of trash. Concrete rarely has stains. POS are consistently up in a timely manner. Patios are kept clean, orderly, swept. Windows are kept relatively clean with only minor dust and smudge. Now, what happened was that the owner's wife actually had a team of ladies that would go out and actually help with some extra cleaning chores, do some extra deep clean stuff. So they also were the ones that would do these kinds of comments. They would go out and do the scoring based upon that. Lobbies and bathrooms. Are they clean, orderly, and stocked? Decor up, current POS. I don't know if that one snuck in there. Because the lobby needed a current PS. So this was the drive-through. This was exterior. This was the point of sale, literature, materials inside in the lobby. No lobby, meaning point of sale. Bathrooms are kept very clean and stocked. So they still gave them a 5. Nice. Behind the bar, behind the bar and stockroom. This is really important at Roasters. Was they did not want the customer from line of vision with the customer to see a bunch of crap. They didn't want people to pull up and to be able to look in the windows or stand behind the counter if it was a cafe and just see junk and clutter. So cleanly stocked, clean, orderly stocked, good projection in line of vision for guests. Behind the bar is not kept very clean and presentable to guests. Products are kept well stocked. Stockroom has some reports of messy floors, so they rated them down. Atmosphere. Baristas' appearance to Roasters standards, positive energy, move with urgency, serving guests in a timely manner, minute and a half per car. So they would actually get rated down if at a scorecard or at a report card time, there were cars that weren't moving at our target. There were no dress code violations for this quarter. Energy is very good at the store. Good use of runners with no long waits. And I will say this, what we did do with these report cards is we gave them check-ins. Like we had created almost like a pop quizzes on how people were doing throughout the quarter, so they knew. And so that's the reference there of energy very good at the store or no violations this quarter. I think they were just kind of keeping track with that. 5 out of 5. Checklists. Checklists completed. Checklists are completed in a timely manner and a majority of time. They would give out checklists of things they wanted done from the aesthetic perspective at stores, and they performed well. So
that was also our chore duties that we called them checklists because chores was a bad word. It's a scary word.
Awesome. Scary word, huh?
As as tedious as the aesthetic sounds, I actually started, to kind of fall in love with the whole customer-oriented presentation thing. Down anywhere from, you got to hand out the cup properly to make sure you have enough straws in the lobby, to when you put bags in your garbage cans, make sure that the where it's tied is hidden in the back. Like they get really down to the nitty-gritty, but it's all about a fantastic experience. So aesthetics is a priceless portion of this whole thing.
And I know
it's done.
What's that?
How often are these done again?
So the report cards, these report cards, these are quarterly report cards.
Quarterly.
Yeah.
And were the managers given a heads up before you were coming in to do this, or could they anticipate you doing it at a certain time or like week, or was it kind of a sporadic thing where you popped in?
Usually it was at the end of every quarter. And so usually I would send out a reminder to all the leads and just say, hey, it's report card time. Collab team would create all the report cards for everybody. So I would tell everybody, hey, report cards are in your folder. You can go grab those and start those. I'd like those completed within the next 2 weeks. And then they would have a 2-week window of time. So whether or not that was told to the managers, Drew, maybe you can speak to that, but I know my cadence down to the people doing the report cards was final two weeks of the quarter.
Yeah, it was, we always knew because it was done the same way, but these aren't like they don't come in and do this all at one time. It's like these grades are an accumulation of things that have been reported throughout the quarter. And so like Aaron was saying, we'd get pointers. I don't know if it was every week. They did pit stop, they called them pit stop lineups. They'd come in and
lineup, right?
PSLUs, they'd come in and check the boxes, and then they'd show us how we did. So we would know in real time what we were struggling with. And how to fix it. They'd, give us coaching points and perspective so that we weren't just working in the dark all the time. But yeah, we always knew when they were coming out, and we always dreaded it.
And the pit stop lineups are a very familiar format, very, very similar to this format wise. And then the way that they did it was after they, let's say the aesthetics team went in, they would write out, they had a piece of paper on them, they'd write them all out, and then they take a screenshot and post them to the WhatsApp channel, so that the managers could see exactly what was going on, and the managers could share it with their people as well.
So that gave us good points of conversation for our monthly meetings, things that we can improve on. And the same thing with other areas. Like Ben didn't have a piece of paper that he wrote out, but if you were struggling somewhere, he'd contact you and let you know, hey, you need to go. He wouldn't fix it for you. He said, hey, tally on, March 13th needs to be fixed, or just take a look at it and see what you find there's a problem with it. So he, they'd coach you along throughout the quarter.
Ryan, did you have a question? Do you have a thought? You're mute. Sorry, you're muted.
I know. I hit it too, and I missed it. So I'm imagining it a lot like a good teacher would show us the entire quarter's worth of assignments. Every quarter, every assignment has a score, a potential score. My score is written there of what I'm getting. I've got a cumulative grade the entire time. I know exactly what my percentage is in the class. So when I get to the end of the quarter, into the semester, I'm not surprised that I'm only pulling an 86 or a 72 or a 43, because I can see it the whole way along, right? It's not like you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, your grade was a D-. Sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, sorry, Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, and then it rolls uphill. So the manager or the regional is like, hey, why is your person getting a 40%? Come on.
Well, I think especially because we would hold everybody accountable, right? So like,
yeah, exactly.
At the end of this, like we like would bonus people out based upon who scored what and who won, but also the equal was equally true when people sucked it. It was the regionals that got the burn. Like the regionals got the burn, and then the regionals would lean down on the managers, because this isn't just the regionals giving scores. This is other people giving scores, So a lot of times they were like, dang it, why are you going to stay on top of it? So it's nice to see the feedback and see different feedback coming in. And Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, but pit stops lineups, there wasn't really a consequence. It was more just like a climate check. Hey, this is your climate check. Don't end up at the end of the quarter like being this way. This is a shot across the bow. Like keep it real. Like just know, if I keep seeing this kind of stuff at the end of the quarter, you're going to get a bad grade on this, So
they definitely let you know if you did bad. And if you did great, they'd actually celebrate you. But at the same time, it was like a system of checks and balances, because, when you have your regionals, and I was, one myself, of course, you want to be the best and you want your people to be the best, but that means that you can sometimes, game the system a little bit. So when you have other departments grading your managers, you can't hide anything, you can't cut corners. It provides a nice system of balance.
Yeah, it's good. I think some of that like rollout might be, like Tasha, I'm thinking about you down in Reno, and I know that like you don't have a big pool of people that could come alongside you, but there is like visibility of things where, like the more and more we lean into a cloud-based system where Ryan could be tracking certain things, or Drew or I could be tracking certain things, and just telling you even like numbers that we're tracking on our weekly L10s in the scorecards, in the report card, in the scorecard for the L10s, where we're like, these numbers are important to us. And then like creating something around that as well. So it wasn't just you, but there could be some outside opinions so that people could know, oh, it's not just Tasha, there are other people that are watching too, and this is the feedback we're getting. So I think there can be some cool things that can be done, even if you are, managed remotely too, or have, leadership that's remote.
Totally.
Regional, this was what Drew was talking about for his stuff. So for regional, it's wait times and greetings. So the car timer reports on the stores that had car timers, we also just did those. We manually ledgered those. We would have people stop in and just quality control ledgering, like a couple times during the weeks, and see how car times are going. Is the store utilizing the runner system optimally? So are you getting people out in the drive when they need it most? The comment back on this was a few times the afternoons and nights we had long waits. Mornings were always on point. So they gave them just a little bit of score down. Customer interactions. All customers warmly greeted upon entry and sincerely thanked upon exit. Drinks repeated back to the customer the first time. Eye contact made, back not turned. This was a huge thing at Roasters. Like that was, I'd say if there's one thing that rose above all of them in my mind, it was this. It's like when people come in, like treat them well. Don't ever turn your back on the customer. Make sure you're making eye contact. That was stuff that was really, really key to the owners. And so that's something that's like a key to the owners. We made sure it was held consistently throughout, held the accountability. So the comment on this was vets do great. The younger baristas could be pushed, so there's some opportunity to coach there. Quality. Drinks are made behind the bar. Drinks are made behind bar on counter, not in guest payment areas. Taste, temp, presentation, all on point, verified and corrected if not. They did great on their quality. That was another big thing at Roasters was steam milk. Steam milk season always came around and kicked everybody in the ass. Like everybody was like, the baristas weren't on point. They hadn't been practicing, the cold season was back and it was like, okay, hey, make sure your people are up on how they're steaming milk and make sure it's in the right temp and make sure the taste is right, make sure the foam is right and all those different pieces. That was a really big deal for Roasters quality control.
Do a lot of pop quizzes. How long do you steam this milk for? How long do you aerate this milk for? What's the temp supposed to be at? Let me try some. Steam me some hot chocolate.
Yeah, a lot of pop quizzes. But I think that bottom line is that whatever your metrics are, like that was Roasters' big deal. And this was really Roasters' big deal. That doesn't mean it has to be everybody's big deal. What's your big deal? And make sure it's on your report card and make sure that your people know that's a big deal and score them based. This is the way that you get their attention is like, if you score somebody down, nobody likes a sheet that has everybody's report card on it, that anybody can click in on and see how they were rated and to see that they sucked it. You'll see some in like a 71%. You'll notice that's Ben's little brother. Nobody wants to see that. And I think that the way that you teach them is this is important to us. We've told you all quarter, you're going to get rated down if you don't do it well. Like that's important. Communication. How well or often is the group chat being utilized? The shop is one of the best and is updated the fastest. Thanks, Christina. So this was one where she really stayed on top of group chatting it up, like making sure that people are well informed in our group. Employee conflicts. Right? This is like drive-through coffee 101. Store maintains a drama-free zone, barista to barista relations. Like that is one of the number one things. So it's great when you can maintain no drama. No reported issues this month. They all get along so well for being in a shop. Open the latest. This is one of the stores we tried to do a 24-hour store. This didn't work out. That didn't work out so well. So then it just became our latest open store. They got a 5 out of 5. Drew, do you have any thoughts on any of these things covered?
I think that it's all about communication, especially from the regional perspective, because once you hand off that information, then you can hold people accountable. But if you forget to tell them, then you can't exactly hold them to a standard that you think is important. And creating that expectation of excellency, and it not only gives you the opportunity to push people, of course, in a reasonable way, but it gives people the opportunity to rise up. And you tell them you believe in them when you can communicate all of these things. Hey, these are all possible. These are all things I know that you have in you. Yep. Now let's get there together. So I think it's all about encouragement and communication.
It's good. All right. Finally, and then Tasha, I'm going to ask you at the end of all this, like just any feedback that you've got that you'd want to share. Because when you're live, you get to speak. When you're live, you get to talk about stuff. So I'd love to hear how your brain's processing it. And if you have ideas or thoughts or things that are important to human being, I would love to hear feedback from you. So this is culture. This was the final division. The cultural, we named this role a lot of different things over time. And so, CCNF is where we landed at one point in time, which was like cultural something and fit, culture.
It was customer, culture, and flow.
That's right. Customer, culture, and flow. That's right. And so
he was just a jack of all trades, that guy.
Seriously, this is like the catch-all. This is whatever didn't fit in operations and aesthetics and regional work. This was like this guy's job to maintain. So this one may seem like a little bit of a random section. You may have random sections on your report card, but it's just some things are important. This is scheduling. Schedules are made 2 weeks in advance and made to set up for store success. Obviously, all of us know schedules can be a total pain. The further you get out in front of that, the better. Yes, Christina really cares about our employees and shows in her scheduling and punctuality. Jarek went the full 9 yards. He gave comments on everybody, whether he gave you bad or good ratings. Customer feedback. Customer complaints and compliments. Only in January did the store receive 2 strength compliments and 1 service complaint. February and March are phenomenal. Keep it up. You got a 4. Harsh rating, man. You get two ratings down, you get 1 point. That's brutal, but you did. Upkeep. This is how we managed facilities fixes. Is manager reporting all the upkeep requests in a timely manner? No, 100%. Christina is good at reporting on WhatsApp and forgets to place it on upkeep often. So this is a newer tool. We initially had started with any fixes came through WhatsApp, but it made the chatter so loud inside of WhatsApp. So we moved to upkeep, which is a better way for us to maintain fixes on machines and buildings. But it was a new tool and it took a while for people to get used to. So it sounds like Christina did good on the chat version of it, but not good on the actual app. Discipline. Is manager following the 48-hour write-up system? Yes, Christina has given employees strikes in a timely manner. This is a big one to Jarek. Jarek was always big on discipline, so that was important. And then team connections. Does the store have monthly meetings and quarterly outings? She's had 2 of the 3 store meetings. Remember to have them every month and take them out once a quarter. Creates communication and culture. You gave her a 3. So 19 out of 25. That definitely dinged her down. I mean, that brought her down. She lost 6 points out of it. 6 points up would have been a 92. And she could have been one of the top scorers. So I think all those things communicate value, communicate importance, communicate this is important to us. His summary was continue using upkeep, have store meetings, you're doing great. I think that's a real good succinct summary. Like here are the high points. If you want the high points, take home. That also helps him. The way these sheets would work is all 4 quarters would stack on the bottom here. So you could click one after the other and see the progress made throughout the quarters down below. Tasha, Drew, any thoughts or feedback or questions in regards to the report card?
I think it's great. I like the direction and the structure behind it. Sometimes I feel like, how can I reprimand or coach better if I don't have something to prove it off of or what my expectation is? So this is kind of like the backbone behind the why, or why it's important, or why do I expect this out of you? It also just shows them, hey, this is on the first quarter. We're still having this issue. Like, come on, like how many quarters do we have to go through before this actually gets resolved? We had an action plan lined out. What are you doing to make it happen, kind of thing. So I love it.
I think it's cool too when you can hit somebody besides just the manager too. So that some of these duties were handed down to assistants.
Right.
And so then it's like, it can be company wide. It's not just you come down the manager, it's coming down on how the manager can delegate. We want the manager to delegate and elevate. We want them to be elevated to the greatest level of brilliance of what they do best for the store. And it's okay for them to task down to assistants or to leads. But I think in that, realize it all rolls up to one person. I mean, like, right. So make sure you're managing your people well, and whoever you've handed those things down to, or if they're not doing a good job, that you're correcting them so that by next quarter, we're seeing some progress upward. So I think it helps them with hierarchy as well and understanding that.
Totally. It gets everybody involved.
Yeah. Drew, any other follow-up thoughts on the card itself?
Yeah, I really can appreciate this system because discipline is a bad word, but I think that when you can teach people the healthy side of discipline, like self-discipline, self-accountability, yep. You teach people to be motivated intrinsically rather than needing, these report cards to say 100% to feel good about yourself. Yep. You actually have the opportunity to improve on yourself on your own time and with your own methods. It's not, you're not forced to fit a certain shape. You were kind of allowed to take shape on your own as long as you could succeed in those areas. And we had the checklist that we mentioned earlier. They were set up a little bit similarly. It was not nearly as in depth, but they were kind of a hard thing for managers to get a handle on, managing all the time. Just the accountability was, rough. Every single day, you got to take account of who didn't do what and then communicate that. But the more that the managers dealt with this, the more the managers had this in their face and on their mind. I think it gave them more appreciation for teaching their people how to manage the store properly rather than them having to oversee everything all the time.
I think too, if you can conceptually get in your brain that discipline, like it's the same word as discipling, right? Or mentoring, or like raising somebody up underneath you. All you're trying to give them is the best version of what we can offer to our customers, which is the most important thing. So as I correct you on these things, as you get disciplined over these things, just realize it's not me saying you're a terrible human being. It's not me saying that you suck and that you'll never be good at this. Obviously, that's poor discipline. Good discipline is, hey, this is opportunity for you to improve. for the sake of you turning out to be the best version of you, for the store to turn out the best version of you, so the company can be the best version we can be, for the sake of expecting like best profit. Like we all love going places that have excellent customer experience. I know for Shannon in particular, who was Wes's wife, the owner's wife at Roasters, she loved the Disneyland experience. And that she went through a whole phase at one point of they're not customers, they're guests, because Disneyland calls everybody that comes into their park a guest, you know, and like, even if it's just a reposturing of understanding, no, we're here to serve our guests. We're here to serve these people because our hope is that they're going to keep paying our mortgage. They're going to keep paying our people. They're going to keep buying our cost of goods. You know, like it's these people's money coming in that keeps us alive. And who doesn't want to roll into a clean place? Who doesn't want to roll into some place that's the energy is just good? We've all walked into places where there's hostility, right? Where you walk in and you can just feel the energy is not good here. Like this is not a good spot. And so like, I think wanting to create something that's going to want people want to spend money. When I walk in to a coffee shop that's got good energy and the barista behind the bar, the interaction's fun and we engage and I appreciate him or her and the quality turns out great, I leave bigger tips. I buy more stuff. I frequent that place more often. But if I come in and that experience is bad, it makes me want to consider the place down the street, even if this place is more convenient, because I go where the good energy is, you know. And I think that a lot of people are that way. So I think it's good to realize this kind of stuff matters because it matters to the bottom line. So what we would do is all of those numbers would roll up into the report card roll up that we're tracking quarterly, and then bonusing accordingly. So what I would do is I would send out this email at the end of every quarter, and I would CC in the manager. And it looks like this is a handoff situation where there are 2 managers involved, and all 3 of the regionals, because I wanted everybody to see, hey, this is who's won, you know. And there were some times where I would include all of the managers. Like I think Ben and I got on the fence sometimes on do we want to tell everybody? Do we want to just tell these? And we bonus it out. So for this, I said, Bo and Becca, here's the lab's Q4 report card, scored an 86.6. This is a big process for us all. So essentially this is just saying, take it seriously. Because this manager will be setting up follow-up meetings, discuss action plans. Please take this seriously and let's continue to raise the bar of excellence. So sorry, this is the one that I sent out to everyone, like for their particular report card, but then the winner, I would send it out to everybody. And I would say, Bo and Becca, you won this quarter for having the best store, getting the best report card. Meet up with Ben. He'll make sure he bonuses you out with a bonus. And I think we said, Drew, what did we say? It was like $500, $500 for a cafe, $200 for a drive-through on whoever got the best report cards. And I think that it was because for Roasters, this is a really big deal. And we wanted them to feel, you know, the impact of that. And then also be able to have bragging rights too. So I think that both of those sides of it are important. Drew, do you have feedback on that?
Not to take away from the drive-through experience, but a cafe is a place that, you know, houses people could be for hours at a time. And so the care that goes into the, you know, the customer facing, customer oriented, customer who sits in the lobby for 3 hours is going to catch a lot different vibes than somebody who goes through a drive-through for 3 minutes. And so I think that was why we bonused it out a lot differently. And the management that went into it all, you know, the oversight and the coaching and the culture. You got to have some happy baristas for people to sit in that lobby for 3 hours.
I think too, on top of that, there's usually more stuff to manage, right? More bodies. I think that I'll always talk to people, whenever people talk about opening coffee, I'll always tell them drive-throughs. This is what you want, because cafes are a pain in the ass. Like, because, I mean, I will say the one benefit is if you can do one cafe per like 2 or 3 drive-throughs, sometimes there's a benefit in that, because usually you can use the cafe as storage. I mean, like you've got a little bit bigger area, then maybe you don't have to rent out a whole separate storage unit. You can use the cafe for some storage. It also is nice to main hub someplace and then have the drive-throughs that can all main hub in some, especially if you're planting in new towns. Sometimes I'll recommend a cafe amongst a gathering of drive-throughs, but I will say your lease is more because you're leasing more square footage. Your labor is more because it takes more bodies to run that much more square footage. Your utilities are more because you have to keep the lights on for that much more square footage. Like every single part of a cafe costs more, which means your profitability is a lot lower, even though a lot of times your gross might be higher. Maybe you're able to drive more cups when you have people walking in and sitting versus just hitting a drive-through. But a lot of times, we saw much, much higher profitabilities come out of the drive-throughs because quite frankly, there was a lower footprint that they had to maintain and less drama, right? Drew's scheduling for Richmond had so many more people he had to schedule for than a little drive-through that, you know, is servicing a couple of windows and is just having 2 or 3 people in there at a time is a lot easier than a 7-man shift at times that would happen at Richland. Drew, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, 7 was about the max. We had, I think, 19 people at that store at one point, total. And I had to write the schedule in 2 portions. I had to write an AM schedule and a mid schedule because my brain I didn't have the talent to write it all as one massive schedule. And going into the cafe, I think, you know, we were posed in an interesting spot in Tri-Cities. We were part of a lot of people's stories. You know, we had people who started, you know, drinking Red Bulls in middle school or whatever, and then they made it all the way through high school and college, and they'd come in and study. And so there are some other benefits. It obviously depends on what your angle is, what your values are. Do you want to be a cultural hub? Do you want to just be a stop and go? It's all fantastic if you're serving customers at a high level, but it all really kind of depends on what you want out of the business and what you feel in your heart should be the best thing to do. Obviously for finances as well as for your customers.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Tasha, any other ideas or thoughts or things around that? If not, we can jump over Slido.
Yeah, no, I don't have any cafes and I'm thankful for that.
I mean, honestly, our cafes were some of our highest grosses, but our cafes were some of our biggest pain in the asses too.
Yeah.
And I will say,
pain in the ass.
I will say, like,
Another animal.
Drew was like, we always had the hardest time promoting people out of the cafes, right? Because you didn't want to leave the base unattended, you know what I mean? And it was really hard to graft somebody in behind. Once you had a manager that could just run it, it was like, don't mess with it. Because like that store's going to pay in the ass forever, you know? So then it was like the place of no return. You get stuck in that cafe. It was really hard to promote you out of it. And that was the top of the food chain because it was the largest store. So you usually got the best pay, best tips. Like you had the most opportunity to get like incentive matrix bonused out because you had the highest numbers, like all those different things are true, but it was also a total pain in the ass. And it was kind of where people went to die too. You know what I mean? Like people would get so stuck in there. So I think it took us like 2 years to work Drew out of regionally managing Richland, or managing over Richland to get him into a regional. And we even had to do a hybrid for a cross section of that because it was like, he couldn't leave it unattended. And it happened the same way before Drew with Jarek. Jarek was in that same position where he was stuck there for a couple of years before we could even work him out, because it was like, anytime we tried to pull them out of it, it just went to shit, you know? And so then you're just like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to find people who are serious enough to take it as like, and I'm going to preach about, the job that we did, but, like it's an extension of you when you're managing a cafe. You have people who sit in there. You can't go sit in there when you're done working because you'll never get out of there. The customers will just talk to you all day.
Right.
You can't go, you can't sit in a corner and sit on your laptop because people will come up to you because, you serve them all the time. And so that was kind of why it was hard, because the people that you promote into the cafes didn't quite understand what they were getting into. So it's like, hey, I'm going to sugarcoat this a little bit, but I'm not going to lie. Like you see me jump through the hoops. You see these kids eating these scones all over the carpet all the time. So, there are some pain points that come with managing something like this. And so I think, what do we like to say? You pull back the curtain and you can see all the inner workings. It's a lot more intimidating than when you're just an assistant manager.
Totally.
And I think too, something I felt like we tried to do really well, and what we try and advocate for other businesses that we've gotten into really well is, hey, start somebody small, right? Like when you're thinking about promoting, like start somebody small, and when there's an opportunity for them to move up, make the move up not drastic. You know what I mean? So if you're at a low volume store, move them up to a mid-level store. And then from a mid-level store, move them up to a high volume store. And then if it's a high volume drive-through, then escalate them up to a cafe. But don't just like throw them from a mid-level drive-through into a high volume cafe, because they're gonna drown no matter how good of a manager they were, because it's a completely different animal. So I think that what the report cards really enable you to do, what I really love about consistency and metrics, is it shows you who's climbing the ranks. Once people have nailed down their report card in their store size, then that's a perfect candidate to be escalated up to a higher volume store, because they've shown you through their performance they can do it. It's not just personality, because there are plenty of people that can talk a great talk or win you over because they're charismatic, but like numbers don't lie, right? Like, so all I have to do is go back and see, how have you been doing since you've been managing? And then that tells the story on ascension, and also ascension to different levels within the company, because all companies have the sleeper, right? You wish all of your stores are in a location. You wish that all of your stores are bangers, but the reality is that not all stores are bangers, and that's okay, because sometimes the sleepers can be great training spots. Like put people in the sleeper, let them be trained at a lower volume, let them be trained at a lesser expectation, so that you can see, are they going to rise, and when they rise, where do they go next? And create kind of ascension within your own company based upon metrics, I think is so safe and healthy and grows such strong culture. So you don't just throw people in to drown.
I remember Wes talking about Richland early days, saying, we created a monster. We don't know how to manage this thing. It's too big. It's too busy. We don't know what to do. And of course, it got easier over the years as we got more used to it. But yeah, you want the ones that are manageable, because the ones, if you have a ton of, A+ stores, everybody's going to be worked to the bone, exhausted.
Well, and I think what came out of what made Roasters unique in that was Wes took over old locations from a couple of those early days ones, So his first store was a drive-through, single-sided drive-through that was just a banger. And then his second store was Richland. So it was like, oh my gosh, like, so you're going to go from a single-sided drive-through to huge square footage, and like just a much bigger pain point. And from there, we had some control because we started building, you know what I mean? But it's like, sometimes you're not always in control of what you've been given, but you can begin to control the flow. And so that's what we've tried to do through the years, is how can we better adjust based upon the flow and the volumes? So
not just keep diving in head first.
that's the Drew Moody way.